3 years ago, at the age of 60, I made a decision that my friends thought was either incredibly wise or completely insane. After decades of dating, relationships, breakups, makeups, and the endless cycle of hope and disappointment, I decided to stop looking for love altogether. Not because I was bitter, not because I'd given up on life, but because I realized something profound. I had spent so many years searching for completeness in another person that I'd never learned to find it in myself. Hi, it's Vernon again, and I want to share 4 profound realizations that led to this life-changing decision. How many of you watching this right now are exhausted? Exhausted from the dating apps, the awkward coffee meetings, the careful presentation of your best self, the hope that maybe this time will be different, followed by the familiar disappointment when it's not. What if I told you that the moment I stopped chasing love, it found me, not in the form of another person, but in the form of a deep, unshakable peace with who I am? If you've ever wondered whether there's another path to happiness, one that doesn't depend on finding the right person, but on becoming the right person for yourself, please subscribe my channel and ring that notification bell. Let me begin with the realization that started it all, the exhaustion that comes from endless seeking.
Number 1. The exhaustion of endless seeking. There's a particular kind of tiredness that comes not from physical exertion, but from emotional expenditure. It's the fatigue that settles into your bones after years of hoping, trying, presenting, performing, and perpetually optimizing yourself for someone else's approval. I remember sitting in my car after yet another disappointing coffee date, this one with a lovely woman named Patricia, who spent the entire hour explaining why her last 3 relationships hadn't worked out. And I realized something. I was tired, bone deep, soul-level tired. But this wasn't just dating fatigue. This was the exhaustion that comes from living in a constant state of evaluation, always wondering if I was good enough, interesting enough, successful enough to earn someone's love. The Roman philosopher Seneca once wrote, "Every man's life lies within the present moment, but very few men live in the present moment." For many older men stepping back into the world of dating, this insight hits harder than they might admit. So often, life has been lived in the future conditional. I'll be happy when I find the right person, or I'll feel complete once someone truly understands me. Think about the mental and emotional energy required for dating after 60. Every meeting carries a weight of hope and caution. You're constantly curating how you present yourself, managing both your expectations and theirs, navigating subtle cues and potential rejections, recovering from disappointments that sting deeper with age, and yet trying to muster hope for the next possibility. All of this happens while carrying decades of experiences, joys, losses, and learned caution. In this context, what truly draws his attention isn't flashy charm or youthful energy. It's the authenticity and presence that makes him feel seen, safe, and genuinely understood in the moment. It's emotionally exhausting. Research from the American Psychological Association shows that the stress of seeking romantic validation can actually decrease overall life satisfaction, especially in older adults who may be comparing their current reality to idealized memories of past relationships. When I finally acknowledged this exhaustion, really sat with it and honored it, I realized something profound. I didn't have to keep doing this. The idea that everyone needs to be actively seeking partnership is a social construct, not a biological imperative. The moment I decided to stop dating, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Deep, profound relief. Like setting down a heavy backpack I'd been carrying for miles without realizing how much it was weighing me down. Have you ever experienced this kind of exhaustion from seeking? Sometimes acknowledging it is the first step towards freedom. Share your thoughts below. This community understands. But the relief from exhaustion was just the beginning. What I discovered next was even more liberating.
Number 2, the liberation from performance and pretense. Here's something nobody talks about when discussing dating after 60. How much of it involves becoming a carefully crafted version of yourself designed to appeal to a theoretical person you haven't met yet. One of the quietest yet most profound shifts that comes when dating after 60 is the freedom from performance. When you were younger, dating often felt like a test. How you looked, how you acted, the small gestures you made, all under constant scrutiny, both from yourself and the other person. Every first meeting could feel like a subtle audition, a weighing of worth and compatibility that left little room for ease or authenticity. For months before I stopped dating, I had been living what I now call a curated existence. My apartment was always date-ready. My stories were polished and perfected. My interests were strategically appealing. I was performing the role of Vernon the desirable bachelor, rather than simply being Vernon. One evening, I was rearranging my living room for the third time that week, moving books I thought made me look intellectual to more prominent positions, hiding evidence of my nerdy obsession with model trains, when it hit me. I was living in a museum of my own making. By the time you reach 60 and beyond, a new clarity emerges. You've lived long enough to know your values, your boundaries, and what truly matters. You no longer need to perform to impress, nor do you have to pretend to be someone you're not. The pressure to win a date or to conform to someone else's expectations falls away. Instead, what becomes magnetic is simply being yourself, the real, unfiltered you, with all your quirks, wisdom, and life-earned perspective. The Greek concept of authenticity, authentikos, means original or genuine. But somewhere in my dating years, I'd become a copy of what I thought others wanted, rather than the original of who I actually was. When you're dating, every conversation becomes a presentation. Every outfit is a strategy. Every hobby gets evaluated for its attractiveness quotient. You start editing your personality, highlighting certain traits while hiding others. I love detective novels. Not the sophisticated literary kind, but the pulpy, ridiculous ones with dramatic covers. For 2 years, I hid this passion because I thought it wasn't intellectually enough. I was literally hiding joy from my own life. When I finally gave myself permission to stop performing, something magical happened. I started wearing clothes I actually liked, eating at restaurants I enjoyed, pursuing hobbies that genuinely interested me, not because they made me attractive to others, but because they made me happy.
What parts of yourself have you hidden or modified to seem more appealing to potential partners? Sometimes naming these can be the first step towards reclaiming them. This liberation from performance led me to a discovery that would fundamentally change how I see myself and my worth as a human being. Number 3, the discovery of authentic self-worth. Perhaps the most profound discovery of my dating sabbatical was this. I had been outsourcing my sense of worth to people who barely knew me. I was allowing strangers to determine my value based on whether they wanted to see me again after coffee and conversation. About 6 months after I stopped dating, I was having dinner alone at my favorite Italian restaurant, something I'd never done while dating because it seemed pathetic, when I had an epiphany. I was genuinely enjoying my own company. Not tolerating it, not enduring it, but actually enjoying it. I realized that for decades I had been operating under the assumption that my worth was contingent on someone else's recognition of it. If someone didn't want to second date, I questioned my personality. If a relationship didn't work out, I analyzed my inadequacies. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." At 60, I finally understood what he meant. I had been living as if my neighbor's opinion was more important than my own experience of myself. Society teaches us, especially as we age, that our value is somehow measured by whether we're chosen, pursued, or validated by another person. That subtle pressure can make dating feel like a test of worth rather than an opportunity for genuine connection. But this is a profound misunderstanding of human value. Your worth isn't conditional. It doesn't rise when someone loves you, and it doesn't fall when someone doesn't. The real freedom and the true peace comes when you internalize this truth. When you stop seeking validation from every interaction and release the need to perform for approval, you reclaim a sense of completeness that is independent of any partner. You can enter a relationship or choose not to without fear, without insecurity, and without the exhausting mental games that younger dating often demands. When I stopped seeking validation from potential partners, I started validating myself. I began appreciating my intelligence, my humor, my kindness, my life experience, not as selling points for someone else, but as gifts I give to myself and the world. Do you remember the exhaustion we discussed? The performance pressure? Both of these stem from the belief that we need external approval to be worthy. When you discover your inherent worth, the exhaustion lifts and the performance becomes unnecessary. Have you ever caught yourself measuring your value by someone else's approval? Whether it was a date, a relationship, or even just a casual encounter. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your experiences and reflections on discovering authentic self-worth. These moments of authentic choice are where real self-worth is discovered and nurtured. And I found the foundation for something even more beautiful, the ability to transform solitude from something to be endured into something to be treasured. Number 4. The embrace of solitude as sacred space. Loneliness is the pain of being alone. Solitude is the peace of being with yourself. It took me 60 years to understand the difference. For decades, society taught me that being alone was a problem to fix, a gap to fill, or a signal of inadequacy. But once I stopped chasing validation from others, I began to see something remarkable. Solitude can be a space for presence, reflection, and self-renewal. When you embrace your own company without judgment, without distraction, and without the pressure to perform, you create a sanctuary for yourself. It's in this sacred space that clarity emerges. You hear your own thoughts, understand your own desires, and recognize the patterns that have shaped your life. There's a deep kind of peace that comes when you're not seeking permission from anyone else to exist fully. You simply are. This sacred solitude also prepares you for more authentic connections with others. When you are completely alone, you no longer enter relationships from a place of lack or need. Instead, you offer your presence, your joy, and your wisdom freely, without expectation or desperation. In other words, your solitude becomes a wellspring of energy, love, and stability that enriches every interaction. During my dating years, alone time felt like a void to be filled, a problem to be solved, evidence of some failure on my part. But somewhere in my first year of intentional singleness, solitude transformed from an absence into a presence. Instead of feeling empty when alone, I began to feel full, complete, whole. I started creating what I call sacred solitude, intentional time alone that wasn't about waiting for something better, but about being fully present with myself. Morning coffee became a meditation. Evening walks became conversations with my own thoughts. Sunday mornings used to be the loneliest time of the week. Everyone else seemed to be with someone, and I felt the absence acutely. Now, Sunday mornings are my favorite time. I read poetry, listen to classical music, write in my journal. I've created a relationship with solitude that nurtures rather than depletes me. When I stopped needing other people for my happiness, I became better at enjoying them. My friendships deepened because I wasn't looking for them to fill romantic voids. My family relationships improved because I wasn't projecting unfulfilled needs onto them. Many wisdom traditions teach that the capacity for solitude is the capacity for spiritual growth. When you're comfortable being alone, you create space for deeper self-understanding, for creativity, for connection with something larger than yourself. You see how these four realizations build on each other? The exhaustion of seeking led to freedom from performance, which revealed authentic self-worth, which made solitude not just bearable, but beautiful. What would change in your life if you viewed time alone not as time to be filled, but as space to be savored? Sometimes the shift in perspective is all we need.
As I sit here today, 3 years after making the decision to stop dating, I can honestly say I've found something I didn't even know I was looking for. A peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. A contentment that doesn't require external validation. And a completeness that exists entirely within myself. The ancient Greeks had a word, ataraxia, which means untroubled or imperturbable. It's a state of serene calmness that doesn't depend on external conditions. I never thought this was possible until I stopped trying to find it in someone else. Since I stopped looking for romantic love, I've received more genuine interest from potential partners than I had in years of active dating. But now it feels different. Not like salvation from loneliness, but like a pleasant addition to an already complete life. For those considering this path, understand that it's not about isolation, it's about integration.
It's about becoming so comfortable with who you are that you can offer your full, authentic self to whatever relationships enter your life, without the desperation that comes from need. I've learned that love isn't something you find, it's something you are. When you cultivate love for yourself, for your life, for your experience exactly as it is, you become a person who radiates rather than seeks, who attracts rather than pursues. At 63, I am happier, more peaceful, and more authentically myself than I have ever been. Not because I gave up on love, but because I found it where it had been waiting all along, within myself. Don't hesitate to like this video and subscribe for more authentic conversations about life after 60. And in the comments below, share what peace looks like in your own life, because we all find it in different ways. Until next time, this is Vernon, reminding you that sometimes the greatest love story you'll ever experience is the one you write with yourself.